Thank you, Rafaelo, for the sharing. Please, we're welcome for the audience or those online to ask questions now. Got about 15 minutes for Q&A.
Thank you for the presentation. Just in defining a workplace accident, is travel to and from work included in a workplace accident, or is it just after arrival at work? Is that a distinction that matters? Because public transport might have an impact on contraction as well.
Thank you for this question. The kind of accident you are asking about are called commuting accident. It means accident that may happen from the way back and forth from home to the workplace. They are included in the numbers that I showed you. From a statistical point of view, we are able to separate and to analyze singularly these kind of events.
So my first question has to do with the big reduction in mortality from in-air workers in the second half of the COVID experience, where it was below the Italian overall experience. Was that because workers were required to be vaccinated before they could return to work? Or what was the reason for that reversal of fortunes, if you will?
Yes, of course, vaccination is one of the reasons why it was safer to be at work. I think that my opinion is that it's a combined action between the vaccination campaign and the activities done by INAIL to improve health and safety, specifically in the time of COVID on the workplaces. So that result is a combination of these two actions together.
And my second question has to do with the excess mortality that was seen in the first part of March, April 2020. Did you have a breakdown of the deaths by industry? So by health sector versus other sectors?
Yes, we have this breakdown, and I can tell you, well, I didn't show it for question of time, but I can tell you that the greatest part of deaths in the first spread of pandemic between the Italian workers was between the operators of the health system in general, operators of the health activities, because they were the only one that were working at the time. The other activities were quite all the other activities were closed because of the impositions of the government.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, great presentation. If a worker got COVID and couldn't work, or a worker got COVID and died, were you able to tell whether that was connected to their work, or did you assume it was connected to their work?
Nice question. Well, actually, there are a number of questions that a speaker doesn't want to be asked. So you kept one of them. Well, I'm joking. Thank you. Between the activities done by INAIL at the beginning of the pandemic, there was one very important. INAIL said that for people working in the health sector, there was no need to justify where they get COVID. If you were working in any of the companies in the health sector and you had COVID, you were assisted by INAIL automatically. For the other sector, of course, you may need a medical assessment or a legal assessment to be sure that you got COVID because of your working activity. Okay?
I've got a question. I've got a question for both Aldona and the fellow. In both your presentations, is the trend is that the male mortality for COVID is higher than female. Does that apply to the measured mortality only, which in case the workers or the people earning income, or does it apply to the whole population?
You want to go first?
I guess probably yes at all, because if I split population, of course seniors, only seniors, to wealthy group and less wealthy, so I get in total whole population. So I think yes, males suffered more than females. What do you think?
Yes, the figures that I showed you were referred to the whole population of workers in Italy. So in general, we can say that male are more interested by the fatal cases. A deeper studying these aspects more in detail studying this detail came out that for the fatal cases for male were related to the different working position basically in the health sector. If female were mainly like nurses, things like that, male were doctors, surgeons that were, for the features of their activity, were more exposed to the risk of infection. So maybe it could be a reason why males are more affected in the case of fatal cases.
No more audience any more questions from the audience? If not, let me ask my final question. Well, actuaries around the world, in countries like maybe UK or Australia, during the pandemic, they've published a lot of analysis and on mortality, morbidity, or any statistics regarding COVID, and that really helps sort of increase their presence and the reputation of actuaries being the demographics experts. Do you see that in your countries as well?
Papers? Not really. I think we have, or at least the things that I know, that we do not have much papers, at least in actual field. Maybe from sociology, like such things like medical cases, probably yes, but actual, no, I do not think so. Not, at least not yet.
Well, I've got quite the same opinion of Aldona, especially in the social security framework where I'm working. I feel like the social security actuaries are not listened very much. Also because, at least in Italy, the social security system is highly depending on the political world. Yes, as INAIL is under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Labor. So the decision of the politicians sometimes have got a priority if compared, well, don't tell it to anybody, but compared to the suggestions that may come from the actuarial world in social security.
I'm just going to long COVID. I attended a presentation last year in Australia here from a lady who had long COVID who turned up to the presentation. She was a journalist and well known, but in a wheelchair, which was quite shocking for the audience to see because we hadn't heard much about long COVID at all, mainly because we went into such severe lockdowns that we had a low number of cases. And so the number that then got long COVID were probably only a handful. But in the US, they had the numbers there, the experience, because they had a lot of cases early on, and I think it was 2.7% ended up with long COVID. Have you continuing the research and analysis of, especially people who had COVID pre-vaccine, that they are more prone to long COVID than if someone who gets it now? And have you done any work on that yet or plan to?
Actually, as far as I know, in Italy, we are not we are not starting to study the effect of the long COVID. My consideration came from other foreign papers or my experience with other colleagues from abroad. And it was something that I like to mention, because as we used to talk about lessons learned from COVID, let's try not to have another lesson to learn. So let's try to think about long COVID before long COVID eventually may become of some importance.
Okay, everyone, thank you for coming to this presentation. Well, let's give a big thank you to our speakers.